The fire pops in the hearth. Coffee warms the palms, and the wind keeps scratching at the cabin like it wants in. Out here, it almost feels like a safe zone. But brothers, I learned something the hard way. Leaving the battlefield doesn't mean the war ends. Sometimes the silence is worse than gunfire. Sometimes the quiet is where the shadows line up and wait. Then the breach happens. Not in a desert, not overseas. In a downtown Chicago restaurant with gold light and rich laughter. Until the doors lock and 5 maintenance men raise guns. A billionaire freezes. A room full of power turns into a room full of prey. And the one person nobody notices? A 15-year-old maid's daughter. Calm. Watching. Like she's been trained. A former SEAL named Cole Dawson sits in the corner with his service dog, Ranger, reading angles like old habit. Until the leader spits one word. Mockingbird. So let me ask you, when the wall's at your back, do you run or do you hold the line? Sit down, brother. Hear this one through. There's a survival lesson in it, and a reminder of what a real guardian looks like. The night at the Meridian. Snow drifted across the Chicago River, soft and soundless, like ash over cold steel. The glass walls of the Meridian glowed golden against the gray, promising warmth, civility, and the illusion that the world outside could not touch those inside. At a quiet corner table, Cole Dawson sat with his back to the wall. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his early 40s, his face lined not by age but by the weight of memory. His navy winter coat hung open just enough to reveal a red and black flannel shirt, faded from years of wear. Beneath the table, his left leg was stiff, an old injury, the kind that throbbed whenever the air smelled like snow. Beside him lay Ranger, a 5-year-old German shepherd with black and tan fur and amber eyes that scanned the room without ever truly resting. The tag on his harness read, "Service dog, do not pet." But even if it hadn't, no one here would have dared to. Ranger radiated quiet authority, mirroring his handler's restraint. Cole wasn't here to dine. He had come because his instincts told him something felt wrong. The Meridian was the kind of place where politicians whispered favors and CEOs traded empires between sips of wine. And tonight, the most powerful man in the room was Graham Whitaker, a silver-haired defense magnate whose smile never reached his eyes. Whitaker's table sat in the middle of the restaurant, a spotlight of wealth. His suit was tailored to perfection, his cufflinks engraved with the crest of a family that hadn't known struggle for generations. Across from him sat Senator Mitchell, a nervous man, dabbing sweat from his upper lip despite the winter chill. He laughed too loudly at Whitaker's jokes. The laughter didn't fool anyone. Near the service station, Nina Parker, a woman in her late 30s, moved with quiet precision. Her black server's uniform fit neatly, her posture disciplined from years of invisible labor. 12 years working under Whitaker's household had taught her that silence was safer than speech. Her face was kind, her eyes tired, the sort of tired that came from being careful every hour of every day. At a small staff table near the kitchen, her daughter, Haley Parker, 15, sat with a textbook open in front of her. Her blonde hair was tied back in a ponytail, her gray sweater and jeans plain but clean. To anyone watching, she was just a teenager waiting for her mother's shift to end. To Cole, who had learned to see rather than just look, she was watching everything. Her gaze moved like a camera lens, from the exits to the security cameras tucked into ceiling corners, to the heavy oak doors that led to the street. She noticed the patterns, how the waiters circled clockwise, how the maitre d' checked the door every 6 minutes,
how the hum of conversation rose and fell in cycles of comfort. Cole's instincts sharpened.
He followed her eyes and realized she was tracking the same things he was. For a brief moment, their gazes met. The recognition was silent, wordless, but real. Then the sound came. A clank of metal against metal, sharp and unnatural. The doors slammed shut. 5 men in dark blue maintenance uniforms stepped inside. The room froze. "Quiet!" the lead man barked. His voice was thick, harsh. "Phones on the table, now!" The other diners hesitated, some confused, some too slow to believe what was happening. Whitaker stood, indignant. "Do you have any idea who I am?" A gun pressed against his temple answered that question. The screams started, then stopped as fast as they began. Fear spread like spilled wine. People ducked under tables, some shaking, others too stunned to move. Cole's hand dropped to Ranger's collar. The dog didn't move, but his ears twitched. A signal between soldiers. Wait. Assess. 5 hostiles, 1 leader. Big, scar over the left eyebrow. 2 by the door. 1 sweeping the tables, 1 standing behind Whitaker. The leader lifted his gun to the ceiling. "Everyone stays put, and nobody gets hurt. We're here for 1 man." His eyes landed on Whitaker. "You, old man, you're going to make a transfer. 50 million. Right now." Nina pressed herself against the wall, eyes darting toward her daughter. Haley hadn't moved. Her face was calm, too calm for a 15-year-old. She wasn't frozen. She was calculating. Cole watched her. He knew that look. He'd seen it in mirrors, in war zones, in the seconds before decisions that changed lives. The robbers began collecting phones, wallets, jewelry. The collector, a stocky man with a duffel bag, made his way toward the staff area. His boots thudded softly on the marble. He stopped when he saw Haley. "What are you, deaf? Phone. Now." Haley looked up, her expression flat. "I don't have one," he snorted. "Every kid's got a phone. Don't lie." She stood, slow and deliberate. "I said, I don't have one." From across the room, Nina gasped, "Haley, please." The man turned, snarling. "That your kid? Keep her quiet, or I will." Cole's pulse spiked. He shifted slightly, testing the weight on his left leg. Ranger's head turned, eyes fixed on the man. Haley's gaze flicked past the robber. A serving cart, silver platter, champagne bottle, heavy enough to make noise. She took a breath. Her voice dropped low. "My grandfather used to say, 'Men with guns forget to look behind them.'" The robber frowned. "What?" Haley pulled the linen cloth from the serving cart. The crash was deafening, silver and glass exploding across the floor. Heads whipped around. The robber flinched. Haley stepped left, pivoted, and swung the edge of the wine cooler into the back of his knee. The man dropped with a shout, his gun clattering across the tile. Cole moved, not fast, but with purpose. He reached the gun first, kicked it away, and crouched between Haley and danger. "Get your mother," he said quietly. Haley's breathing was sharp, but steady. She nodded once, eyes never leaving the fallen man. Nina ran to her daughter, tears streaking her face. Cole glanced toward the leader. Gus, if the other's shouts were any clue. Their eyes met for one tense second.
Cole's expression said nothing, but his stance said, "Try me."
The fire in the kitchen. Wind pressed against the tall windows of the Meridian, carrying the low moan of the storm building outside. Inside, silence had teeth. The world had shrunk to the hiss of fear and the sound of one fallen gun skittering across the marble. Cole Dawson's red and black flannel peeked from under his navy winter coat as he steadied himself. His left leg ached from the sudden movement, the old wound that never healed right, but his eyes stayed sharp. At his heel, Ranger, the German shepherd, stood motionless, body low, tail still, amber eyes flicking from one threat to another. The fallen man groaned on the floor. The other robbers shouted, guns swinging. Their leader, Gus Rourke, broad-shouldered and mean-faced, barked orders that cut through the room. "Get the girl! Get them all back under control!" Haley Parker clutched her mother's arm. Nina's breath came fast and shallow. The girl's voice, steady as steel wire, broke the paralysis. "This way, the kitchen." Cole gave a single nod. "Go. Don't look back." He moved to intercept the nearest gunman while the two slipped behind a half-wall of wine shelves. The air was thick with panic, boots scraping, glass crunching. Ranger moved beside Cole like an extension of thought, blocking the line of sight from the shooters. The kitchen door swung open, slamming into the tiled wall. The noise startled a cluster of chefs hiding under a counter, faces pale, uniforms dusted with flour. Nina and Haley stumbled in first, followed by Cole and Ranger, who took the rear. Cole turned, wedging a metal prep cart against the door. "Stay behind me," he said. His voice was calm enough that Nina almost believed they'd make it out alive. Haley grabbed the red fire extinguisher from the wall. "This works better than a prayer." Cole arched an eyebrow. "Smart kid." She pointed to the handle with the chipped paint. "Pull here." Before Cole could answer, the door rattled, the first gunman trying to shove through. Ranger gave a low growl, deep and controlled, the kind that said danger was seconds away. The door burst open an inch, then another. Cole braced himself, teeth clenched against the flare of pain in his knee, and shoved the prep cart harder. It held, barely. Through the gap, Gus's voice came like a growl. "You think you can hide in there? You're dead, old man." Cole didn't answer. He had learned long ago that words were wasted on men who only understood the sound of dominance. Haley took a step forward, extinguisher in hand. "When they come in, I'll spray. You take them down." Cole looked at her, not as a child, but as a soldier with orders. "We do it clean. No one dies if we can help it." She nodded. "Understood." The door slammed again. The latch cracked. The first gun barrel shoved through. Haley pressed the trigger. A jet of white foam exploded, coating the doorway, the walls, and two startled men who stumbled into the cloud, coughing and blind. Cole pushed forward, grabbed one by the wrist, twisted. The gun clattered away. His movement was quick, precise, and mercilessly efficient. The second man swung wild. Ranger lunged, not a full attack, just a controlled hit. His body struck the man's thigh, throwing him off balance. Cole disarmed him, slamming him face first onto the tile. "Two down," Cole muttered. His breath came heavier now. His leg burned, but his focus didn't waver. Haley glanced toward the ceiling vents. "There's a back exit through the pantry." Nina hesitated, voice trembling. "They'll see us." "Not if they can't see anything," Haley said. She grabbed a 50-pound bag of flour from the shelf and slashed it open with a paring knife. The air filled with a cloud of white dust. Visibility dropped to nothing. Cole smiled faintly through the haze. "You've done this before?" Haley shook her head. "I just read a lot." From the dining room came the distant sound of breaking glass and shouting. The robbers were regrouping. Cole could hear the ringleader shouting again, his patience cracking. He looked at Nina and Haley. "We move now. Ranger first." They ducked through the pantry, a narrow corridor lined with shelves of produce and boxed wine. The cold air from the delivery door bit through their clothes. Cole's limp slowed them, but Ranger's steady pace set the rhythm. Halfway through, they heard a muffled cry. One of the chefs still hiding. Nina stopped, guilt flashing across her face. "We can't leave them." Cole turned back. The chef was an older man with trembling hands, his white hat crooked. Cole's instinct said stay focused, but his conscience said otherwise. He motioned him forward. "Go. Stay low." Behind them, the pounding on the kitchen door started again. As they reached the delivery exit, Haley froze. "Wait." "What is it?" Cole asked. "The delivery alarm. It'll trigger security if we open this door." Cole frowned. "That's good." "No." She pointed to the small red light blinking near the ceiling. "It's wired to the same silent alert the robbers disabled earlier. It'll warn them before it warns anyone else." Cole exhaled slowly. "Then we make noise our way." He reached for a stainless steel tray, banged it against the wall 3 times, a distraction echoing through the vents like thunder. The pounding at the door stopped. Voices shifted direction. Haley smiled despite herself. "You're really good at this." Cole smirked. "Bad habit." Ranger barked once, sharp, warning. Cole spun just in time to see a new gunman burst from the side corridor. Smaller than the others, quick, eyes jittery. This one was Jumpy, the nervous one. Cole stepped forward, hands open. "You don't want to do this." Jumpy's voice shook. "Shut up! Move away from the door!" Haley's whisper cut the air. "He's shaking. His fingers on the trigger." Cole's tone dropped to a low calm. "Listen to me, son. You fire in a kitchen full of flour dust, you'll light this place up like napalm." Jumpy blinked, uncertain. He didn't realize until too late. Flour, when thick in the air, could ignite from a single spark. Cole guided him backward, slow, steady. "Drop the gun and walk out. I don't want you burned for someone else's mistake." Something in Cole's voice, the weight of truth, broke the man's nerve. The gun slipped from his fingers. Cole kicked it aside, nodded toward the back door. "Go. Tell your boss to pick a better life." Jumpy ran. Haley stared at Cole. "Why did you let him go?" Cole checked the hallway. "Because not every fight is worth the scar." He looked at Nina and the chef, both pale and shaking. "Now we move." As they stepped out into the cold alley, the first flakes of heavy snow began to fall. Cole limped forward, Ranger close at his side, the city swallowing their tracks behind them. The night wasn't over. It was only shifting shape. The hostage line. Snow thickened over Chicago like ash from an unseen fire. Sirens wailed faintly across the river, but inside the Meridian, no one could hear them. The restaurant had become a sealed box of fear. From the alley, Cole Dawson pressed his gloved hand against the cold brick, breathing slowly to calm his pulse. His navy winter coat was streaked with flour dust from the kitchen, his red and black flannel shirt half visible beneath it. Ranger, the German shepherd, stood beside him, muscles tense, ears flicking toward every echo. Nina Parker leaned against the wall, clutching Haley's shoulders. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. "We have to keep moving." Haley looked back toward the rear door. No, they'll expect that. They'll come out here next. Cole nodded. She's right. We stay close, out of sight. Through a narrow side window, they could still see the dining floor, overturned tables, shattered glass, and the hostages herded together. Gus Rourke, the scarred leader, paced like a caged wolf. He yanked Whitaker by the collar, dragging him to the front of the room. "Call your office," Gus snarled. "Wire the money." Whitaker's voice cracked. "It's not that simple. The account—" Gus struck him hard. The sound carried through the glass like a shot. Haley flinched. He's going to kill him. Cole's gaze stayed fixed. Not yet. He wants leverage. He crouched beside the window ledge, mind working. They've split. 2 inside, 1 near the lobby. Leader at the front. That leaves 1 unaccounted for. Haley frowned. The nervous one? No. Cole shook his head. Another. The quiet type. The alley stretched behind them, narrow, lined with dumpsters and dripping fire escapes. The air smelled of metal and snow. Somewhere deeper in the shadows, a voice spoke low into a radio. Cole motioned for silence. Ranger stiffened, growling under his breath. From behind a dumpster stepped a tall man in a dark coat, not in uniform, just ordinary enough to blend in. His hands were empty, his eyes alert. "Easy," the man said. His tone was calm, deliberate. "Name's Victor Hale, head of security for Whitaker Industries." Cole studied him, reading the stance, the steady breathing. "You don't look surprised for someone whose boss is held hostage." Hale's lips twitched in a half-smile. "I don't get paid to panic." Haley spoke first. "If you're his security chief, why are you out here?" Hale's gaze shifted to her, sharp, assessing. "Because I don't rush into a gunfight blind. My team's waiting 2 blocks away. I need intel." Cole didn't buy it yet. "You have comms?" Hale tapped his earpiece. "Short range. They jammed our frequency inside, but if I can reach the roof, I can cut through interference and call the police directly." Cole considered. "You go up, they'll spot you." "Not if someone makes noise down here." Haley crossed her arms. "That's not a plan. That's suicide." Hale met her eyes. "So is standing still." Cole looked between them. Something in Hale's calmness felt too measured. The man wasn't scared enough. He'd seen that kind of composure before. Men who'd done worse than rescue missions. "You're ex-military," Cole said quietly. "Private sector now," Hale replied. "Cleaner money." "Dirtier conscience," Cole muttered. Before Hale could answer, gunfire burst from inside. Short, controlled bursts. 1, 2, then silence. Nina gasped. "My God, who?" Cole peered through the glass. The robber guarding the side tables had fired into the ceiling, shouting orders. He was panicking, trying to regain control. Gus slammed his gun butt against the wall, furious. "They're losing it," Cole said. "That means mistakes." Haley's hands tightened on her sweater sleeves. "Then we take advantage of one." Cole turned to Hale. "You said you could reach the roof." Hale nodded. "Maintenance ladder at the far end." "Go. I'll draw eyes your way." Hale hesitated. "You sure about that?" Cole looked down at Ranger. "We've handled worse." The dog gave a low, approving rumble, the sound of trust earned through years of quiet loyalty. As Hale disappeared into the alley's shadows, Cole slipped back toward the kitchen door.
Inside, the air was heavy with gun smoke and fear. He could hear Gus shouting again, closer now. Whitaker's voice trembled. "You'll never get away with this!" Gus laughed. "I already have." Cole eased the door open an inch. He could see Haley's reflection in the stainless steel counter behind him, eyes locked, waiting for his cue. Nina stayed hidden by the rear wall, one hand pressed to her mouth to muffle her breath. Then, from somewhere inside, a sharp cry echoed. A woman, one of the hostages. Cole couldn't see who, but he knew what came next. "Bring me the maid," Gus roared. "She knows him. Bring her or I start shooting."
Nina froze. Haley whispered, "He means you." Cole stepped between them. "Not happening." Nina's eyes filled with tears. "If I don't go, they'll—" Cole's tone hardened. "They'll do it anyway. You walk out there, you give them control." Haley grabbed her mother's hand. "Mom, please." Outside, Gus fired a single shot into the ceiling. 10 seconds! Cole clenched his jaw. He'd been here before. Different war, same cruelty. The sound of a countdown, the pressure of innocent lives hanging on a choice no one should have to make. He turned to Haley. "You trust me?" Haley nodded, trembling. "Yes." Cole took a breath, reached into his coat, and pulled a small metal utensil from the counter. A serving fork, heavy and sharp. "Then follow my lead." He motioned for Haley to grab the empty champagne bottle from the counter. Ranger crouched low, eyes on the door. 3! Gus shouted. Cole mouthed, "Now." Haley threw the bottle through the doorway. It shattered across the marble floor, echoing like a gunshot. Gus and the guards turned instinctively toward the sound. Cole and Ranger burst through. Ranger lunged toward the nearest gunman, knocking him flat. Cole moved straight for Gus, catching him mid-turn. The gun went off, the bullet burying itself in the wall, inches from Nina. Cole struck once, fast, precise. The weapon dropped. "Get out!" he shouted to Nina. "Take her and go!" Haley pulled her mother toward the exit, but stopped at the doorway. For a brief second she looked back, Cole struggling against the bigger man, Ranger locked on another attacker. The storm outside screamed through broken glass as the first police sirens finally reached the street. The woman and the gun. The snowstorm had thickened into white silence. Chicago's streets blurred under the weight of wind and sirens, blue and red lights flickering like distant heartbeats against glass towers. Inside the Meridian, the air smelled of gunpowder, champagne, and fear. Cole Dawson stood between Gus Rourke and the frightened diners, his navy coat torn at the sleeve, his red and black flannel darkened by sweat and dust. Ranger, his black and tan German shepherd, held his stance beside a toppled table, lips curled but silent, eyes locked on the man with the gun. Gus's cheek bled from a cut where Cole's strike had landed. He smiled through it, the smile of a man who didn't know when to quit. "You think you're some kind of hero?" he hissed. "You've got no idea what you walked into." Cole's voice stayed level. "Then why don't you tell me?" Gus chuckled, spit blood, and turned his gun toward Nina Parker, who had just been dragged back into the room by one of his men. The collector, bruised but still standing. Nina's uniform was torn, her hair loose, fear bright in her eyes. "Because she's the message," Gus said, pressing the barrel under her chin. "Don't!" Cole's voice cut sharp through the air. Ranger moved half an inch forward, poised to strike. Gus's grip tightened. "You touch that dog, or move another inch, and this lady paints the floor." Haley froze in the doorway, hands trembling but eyes hard. "Let her go." Gus turned toward the voice, his grin widening when he saw the girl. "Ah, the brave little one. You embarrassed my man earlier. That was cute." "She's a kid," Cole said quietly. "Not anymore," Gus snapped. "You all made her part of this." He pressed the gun closer to Nina's jaw. The sound of her breathing broke the silence, shallow, fast, desperate. "Let's end the guessing," Gus said. "Money or blood? You pick." Whitaker, on his knees near the front, stammered, "You'll never get that transfer through. They'll track it." "Then maybe I'll settle for leverage," Gus interrupted. "You or the maid?" Nina's voice broke through, trembling but defiant. "Leave him. He's not worth it." For a moment, everyone froze. The words cut sharper than the gun. Gus barked a laugh. "Oh, you know him, don't you?" Cole's gaze flicked between them, the terrified servant and the powerful man who had looked at her like she didn't exist. Something heavy fell into place. Whitaker's silence said everything. Gus caught it too. His grin turned poisonous. "Well, isn't this sweet? The billionaire and his housekeeper. I almost hate to ruin a love story." Cole's left knee throbbed, but his mind stayed sharp. He shifted his weight just enough to line up with the chandelier's chain above Gus's head. He spoke softly, not to Gus, but to Haley. "You still got that extinguisher?" Haley nodded faintly. "When I move," he said, "aim high." Gus noticed their exchange. "Don't even breathe, soldier." Cole's tone dropped. "You got something wrong." "Oh yeah?" Cole's eyes darkened. "I'm not a soldier anymore." Then he moved. He ducked left as Haley fired the extinguisher. A white burst of foam filled the air, thick and blinding. Gus cursed, firing wildly. Cole slammed his shoulder into the man's ribs, the shot going wide, shattering a wine bottle behind them. Nina dropped to the floor. Ranger lunged forward, clamping onto the gunman's forearm. Not to kill, just enough to disarm. Gus screamed, the gun clattering away. Cole wrenched Gus's wrist, slammed him against the wall, and pinned him there. His breath came in hard bursts. "It's over." But Gus only laughed through the pain. "You think I run this? You think I care about money?" Cole tightened his grip. "Then what is this?" "Orders," Gus said, grinning even as blood trickled down his chin. "From Mockingbird." The name hit like a gunshot in Cole's mind. His body went cold. Before he could press further, the front windows exploded inward, police lights flaring against snow and glass. SWAT officers flooded the room, shouting commands. "Drop your weapons! Hands up!" Ranger backed toward Cole's leg, hackles raised. Cole raised both hands slowly, signaling calm. The police secured the robbers one by one. Gus, still smiling, was dragged away in cuffs. As he passed Cole, he whispered, "You'll see her again. The girl. They always come for the bloodline." Cole's jaw clenched. "You don't get to say her name." Outside, the cold slapped them hard. Nina clung to Haley, who was shaking but alive. Whitaker stumbled out next, covering his face from the flashing lights. Cameras were already rolling from across the street. The chaos turned spectacle. A detective in a gray overcoat approached Cole. "Sir, we'll need your statement." Cole nodded, eyes still on Gus being shoved into a van. "You'll get it." The detective paused. "You ex-military?" "Was," Cole said. "Good work in there. You probably saved a dozen lives."
Cole didn't answer. He just looked at Haley, who was staring at the police van disappearing into snow. She whispered, "What's Mockingbird?" Cole hesitated, then knelt beside her. His eyes were steady, but heavy. "Something your grandfather tried to bury a long time ago." Haley frowned. "How do you know that name?" Cole's answer came soft, like he was speaking to a ghost. "Because once, I worked for them." The wind howled down the street, carrying the echo of sirens into the night. Somewhere behind them, the Meridian's lights flickered out, leaving the city cold and waiting for the truth to rise.
The Mockingbird's Cage. Snow fell in thick, slow sheets, muffling the city like a blanket laid over a wound. Outside the shattered doors of the Meridian, the flashing lights looked softer now, almost gentle, as if Chicago wanted to pretend this night was ending. Cole Dawson stood under a street lamp, his navy winter coat buttoned against the wind. The edge of his red and black flannel showed at the collar. His left knee throbbed with each shift of weight, but he kept his posture steady. At his side, Ranger, a black and tan German shepherd with amber eyes, stayed close and silent. The patch on the harness read "Service Dog," though the dog needed no label to command space. Detective Owens finished taking statements, his gray overcoat dusted with snow. The detective's face was lined, calm, the kind of calm that came from seeing too many bad nights. "You did what you had to," Owens told Cole. "But now this gets complicated." "Complicated is just another word for covered up," Cole said. Owens glanced toward the black sedan waiting at the curb. Two men in dark coats stood beside it, scanning the street with careful eyes. One of them was Victor Hale, Whitaker's security chief, tall and controlled, never wasting motion. "Whitaker is refusing to talk to us," Owens said. "He's calling this corporate security." Cole followed the detective's look. Graham Whitaker stood a few steps away, wrapped in a designer coat, his face pale under the streetlights. The arrogance from the dining room was gone. In its place was something tighter and uglier. Whitaker's eyes found Haley. Haley Parker sat on the ambulance step with a blanket around her shoulders. Her ponytail had come loose, and flour dust still clung to her sweater cuffs. She looked 15, and far older at the same time. Nina stood close, one arm wrapped around her daughter, the other hand pressed to her own chest, like she was checking that her heart was still there. Whitaker approached slowly, careful with his words, careful with his image. "You were brave," he said to Haley, voice warm in that practiced way rich men used on cameras. "You saved lives tonight." Haley didn't answer. She just watched him with those steady, measuring eyes. Whitaker's gaze shifted to Nina. "Susan," he said, using the wrong name as if he could rewrite the world with it. "Come with me, both of you. My building is secure. The police will not be enough if these men had orders." Nina's jaw tightened. "My name is Nina." Whitaker blinked, annoyed for half a second, then smoothed it away. "Nina, of course." Cole stepped in, polite but firm. "They're not going anywhere alone." Hale's eyes flicked to Cole's limp, to Ranger, to the flannel. "You again," he said, voice flat. Cole stared back. "You said you don't panic. Prove it. Let them choose." Whitaker's smile thinned. "This is not a debate." Haley finally spoke. "Mockingbird?" The word landed like ice. Whitaker's face tightened. His eyes moved fast, checking who had heard it. Cole felt Nina's grip on Haley's shoulder. The mother was shaking again, but she didn't pull her daughter back. She let her speak. Whitaker lowered his voice. "Where did you hear that?" Haley's tone stayed even. A dying man said it, and Cole said he worked for it. Whitaker looked at Cole with a new kind of focus. Not gratitude, not fear. Calculation. "We can discuss this somewhere private," Whitaker said. "Somewhere warm." Cole didn't like it, but he liked leaving them in the open even less. The robbers had not been ordinary thieves. They had been a message. That meant there could be more. Owens leaned in. "I can't stop him from offering protection," the detective said quietly. "But I can tell you to be careful." Cole gave a single nod. "I will." The ride to Whitaker's penthouse was silent. The city slid past, blurred by snow. Nina held Haley's hand like she was afraid it might disappear. Cole sat opposite them, Ranger's head resting near his boot. Whitaker sat beside Hale, fingers laced, eyes fixed on Haley as if she were a puzzle he could not solve. At the penthouse, everything gleamed. Glass, marble, quiet. It felt less like safety and more like a cage dressed up as a palace. Whitaker dismissed Hale with a small gesture. "Give us a moment." Hale hesitated. His loyalty looked real, but it had edges. "Sir, I should stay." Whitaker's voice turned sharp. "Out." Hale left. The door clicked shut. Cole stayed standing, back to the wall, Ranger beside him. Whitaker walked to a hidden panel, pressed his thumb to a scanner, and opened a small safe. He pulled out a slim black laptop with no logo, no markings. "I was told to keep this," Whitaker said. "By your grandfather." Haley's throat bobbed. "My grandfather died 2 years ago." "Yes," Whitaker said, too quickly. "A heart attack." Nina's eyes flashed. "He was healthy." Whitaker didn't look at her. He knew things. Dangerous things. He was part of a program. Mockingbird. Cole's jaw tightened. The name felt like old dirt under his nails. "You used it." Whitaker's smile returned, thin and cold. "It protected this country." "It protected you," Cole said. Whitaker set the laptop down in front of Haley like an offering. "You have talent. I saw it tonight. Your grandfather trained you. He would want you safe. With me." Haley didn't touch the laptop. She stared at it, then up at him. "You think I'm a tool?" Whitaker leaned forward. "I think you are an opportunity." Cole watched Haley's face change. Not rage, not panic. Something quieter. Purpose. Haley opened the laptop. A chessboard appeared on the screen. A prompt for a password blinked beneath it. Haley's fingers moved without shaking. She typed a move her grandfather had drilled into her like a prayer. The screen changed. A list of files appeared. One file name stood out. Mockingbird. Whitaker's breath caught. Haley clicked it. Another prompt appeared, a question in plain text. "What does silence cost?" Haley's eyes lifted to Nina. The mother looked confused, frightened, and proud all at once. Haley typed one word. Everything. The file opened. A web of names, dates, and payments filled the screen. And at the center, bold as a confession, was Graham Whitaker. Whitaker's face went white. "That's classified." "That's criminal," Cole said. Whitaker lunged for the laptop. Ranger moved first, a controlled step, body blocking, a low warning sound rising from his chest. Whitaker froze, then laughed, brittle. "You don't understand what you're holding." Haley's voice stayed calm. My grandfather left this for me, not for you. Nina whispered, Haley, what are you doing? Haley didn't look away from Whitaker, finishing what he started. Cole took out a small prepaid phone he'd kept for emergencies. We call someone who won't take his money. 2 days later, the headline hit like thunder. An investigative journalist named Emily Grant, a sharp-eyed woman in her early 40s with a plain coat and a voice that did not bend, stood on camera and spoke clearly. Documents and recordings show a long-running bribery and murder cover-up tied to a private defense empire. Whitaker's stock crashed. Allies vanished. The penthouse filled with frantic calls and slammed doors. That night, Whitaker walked in to find Haley at the table, a school book open, her face blank like the quiet girl he thought he owned. It was you, he said, voice raw. The leak came from inside my home. Haley closed her book. Yes. Whitaker's hand went for his phone. Hale, get in here. The front door opened instead. Owens stepped in with a team of federal agents, their badges catching the light. The team leader, Special Agent Lauren Pierce, mid-40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense jaw, spoke like a final judgment. Graham Whitaker, Pierce said. You are under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and suspicion of murder. Whitaker's knees almost buckled. His eyes found Haley, searching for mercy. He found none. Only the quiet face of a girl who had stopped being invisible. 6 months later, snow melted into spring. Nina and Haley stood in front of a small house on the edge of a calmer neighborhood. Nothing gleamed, nothing shouted. It was simply safe. Cole visited once, leaning on the porch rail, flannel still under the navy coat, Ranger lying at his boots. Nina asked softly, Do you think it's over? Cole looked at Haley. It's quieter now. That's different from over. Haley nodded, then turned to the camera in her mind, the way a storyteller does when the lesson matters. If you've ever felt invisible, she said, remember this. Truth has weight, and the smallest hands can still carry it. And if this story kept someone company tonight, Cole would have one request. Tell us where you're watching from, he said, voice gentle. Share this with someone who needs hope. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe so we can meet again. There are nights that look like nothing more than a snowstorm, and then they quietly become a turning point. A girl who was invisible stands up. A mother stops bowing her head. A wounded man still chooses what is right. And in the middle of fear, a thin thread of grace pulls people back from the dark. Some people call that luck. But sometimes luck is just an everyday word for a small miracle God places in the right hands at the right time. Not the kind of miracle that splits the sky, but the kind that shows up when a heart is shaking. A clear thought in chaos. A hand that will not let go. A door that opens when there should be no way out. In daily life, we get moments like that too. When someone tells the truth, even though it costs something. When someone stands up for the weak, even when no one is watching. When someone forgives, starts again, or simply refuses to let fear make the decisions. You may not see it right away, but those small choices can be God's quiet way of guiding you. If this story touched you, please share it to spread kindness. Comment and tell us about a miracle in your own life. And don't forget to subscribe so we can meet again in the next story. May God bless you and your family.